Part 8. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 71. Chapter 71. 2 against 1, you can't beat him. Soon they arrived at the door of C's house and walked in. Tang Wan found that the tables around him were shorter than those he usually came into contact with. He only had to stretch out his hand to reach the food on the table. It seems that the CEO of the Si family may be a person who really likes children. Just like Grandma Si. Not good at words, but likes children. Not everyone present has good intentions. This is the sure field for adults, and it is also an opportunity to fight for resources. They brought the invitations sent by the Si family and the chips called children in their hands, hoping to get the favor of some quiet monsters on this chessboard. It's just that the purpose is too eager for quick success and it looks like a greedy ghost. The huge chandelier is in the center of the stage, a visual feast that attracts everyone's attention. Countless and incomprehensible wines and desserts, exquisite makeup, and just the right greetings are the invincible tools for adults in the Vanity Fair. They used the most standard Jingjiao dialect to blend into this huge and gorgeous feast, making it appear that they had entered the upper-class life. Only Tang Wan watched their actions with a pair of black eyes, as if he was studying. For a moment, Tang Wan felt as if he had entered a more cruel world. They are better at pretending and telling the same lies. Only. What are you thinking about? Lu Lin, who was beside him, took Tang Wan's hand and pulled her out of the lonely world where she couldn't find her direction. Tang Wan blinked, then subconsciously took a bite of the dessert handed over by Lu Lin and shook her head. Everything around you is real. She lives in a real human world. While Tang Wan was in a daze, the people around her were actually looking at her. The Lu group and the Si group are actually similar, but the Si group is more mysterious. After all, the Si group has always been red. As for the Lu group, although it is not as popular as the Si group, it is still a local group with a well-established roots and has never made any decision-making mistakes. When they heard that the unmarried young master of the Lu family had adopted a little sister, they thought it was a joke. After all, with such a big group, who wouldn't be tempted? It's really stupid to find someone to divide the property. So when they knew that SINZ specially invited this kid to this banquet, they all said hello to their children. Let's take a good look at what charm this little kid has that makes the unsmiling SINZ like him so much. So as soon as Tang Wan walked in, he felt a lot of eyes. These eyes fell on her, as if they were looking at her. Children who can get into the circle are probably not stupid people. They can't do anything like rolling around in public. Lu Lin looked at the people walking towards him and felt a little irritated. He stuffed Tang Wan into Lu Ziyi's arms, and then said, "Watch your aunt carefully and don't let her be bullied. Otherwise, I will kill you when you come back." Lu Ziyi had long wanted to take Tang Wan to play with his friends, so he nodded quickly and left with Tang Wan. They trotted all the way through several corridors, then opened the door and walked into a private room. The furniture here is specially customized according to the height of the children, so it is thoughtfully made into 2 floors, like a small castle. The 3 children sitting on the second floor of the room, 1 girl and 2 boys, looked at the child held by Lu Ziyi, nodded casually, and then pretended not to see Tang Wan, and said to Lu Ziyi, "Your family is for you find a child bride. You even take her for a walk when you go out to play." Lu Ziyi did not expect that his friend would say this about Tang Wan. He shook his head. His face did not look as innocent as when he faced Tang Wan and Go 11, but became more serious. Like his mother, she seems to be very difficult to deal with. "What are you talking about? If you don't know how to speak, I'll teach you." Speaking, he proudly pulled Tang Wan out and said loudly, "This is my aunt. The cutest and most beautiful aunt in the world. That look is so stinky." One of the children sitting on the second floor was playing with a tablet and ignored these bored kids. His hair is maroon, his eyes are a bit blue due to the blue screen, and he wears a pair of Bluetooth headphones on his ears. He seems indifferent to everything around him. The little boy who had just spoken was given such a brutal blow by Luzi, and his face was a little confused. He jumped down from the second floor menacingly, making a huge noise and startling the children on the first floor. He shook his little leather jacket, his hair was spread out, and the look he looked at Luzi was not friendly. After all, during this period, the Lu family has robbed a lot of resources from his family. Even his father, who has such a good temper, couldn't help but scold the Lu group for being disrespectful at home. Luzi, do you really think I dare not hit you? Tang Wan felt that the little boy's movements and tone were very similar to those of the gangsters who often wandered outside the orphanage. It's just that the clothes on him look better. Tang Wan thought of this and tilted his head, finding it very interesting. It turns out that people can change their identity by wearing different clothes. Lu Ziyi did not give him a good look, and his tone was more fierce than before. But before speaking, Lu Ziyi pulled Tang Wan behind him to avoid hurting her in a fight later. You are really barbaric, I really don't know why they invited you. The little girl wearing a princess dress sitting on the second floor suddenly changed her face and looked a little unhappy. At this time, the little boy who had been wearing headphones said, I told you from the beginning not to let Jopo come, but now it's okay, the quarrel has started. The little girl rolled her eyes and said angrily, you don't use headphones, why are you wearing them? Besides, I never expected him to be so impatient and provoke Lu Ziyi as soon as he came. He is really not afraid of causing trouble for his father. The little boy stretched out his hand and put the earphones into his ears, and replied, Ching Jing, this way no one will come to me to ask questions. It's so annoying. While they were communicating, the atmosphere between Lu Ziyi and Jopo below had become increasingly tense, and it seemed that they were about to fight in the next second. However, just when Jopo clenched his hands into fists, Tang Wan raised the tablet in his hand and wrote on it. This is someone else's house, it's very rude of you to do this. Tang Wan knows that after people put on clothes, they will pay special attention to the face exposed. Children like them also represent the face of the family to a certain extent. So, as long as this little boy takes action, Lu Ziyi will be doubly embarrassed if he fights with him. It's okay for a little boy to be embarrassed. Tang Wan didn't want Lu Ziyi to lose face. So she gently swiped the screen and it read. After all, you can't beat two against one. But Tang Wan can be embarrassed with Lu Ziyi, since she hasn't put on that robe yet. End of this chapter. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 72. The little boy in front of him seemed to be reminded by Tang Wan's words, and he suddenly retracted his fist. He glared at Tang Wan and Lu Ziyi fiercely, and shouted, wait for me. Tang Wan just held Lu Ziyi's hand and sat on the edge. She took out her tablet and clicked on an icon on it. There were many codes and questions that Lu Ziyi couldn't understand. It looked like she was studying. Actually, this is the learning software Fu Wenzi sent to Tang Wan, the same one Tang Wan saw him using last time. Simulating a test environment, you can develop the small programs you want on it, and you can also simulate and use it in the software. After the software is stable, you can put it into use. That is to say, it can be sold for money. It's just that there are very few people who can use this app. There are only 5 people including Tang Wan. The remaining 3 are all owners who are not short of money, and naturally have no interest in selling their own software. There are many gadgets they have made on the list. Tang Wan is now looking at their software and learning how to build them. She wants to make a software similar to the function of a children's watch. It's just that we are not looking for children, but adults. Let him not notice anything. However, Fu Wenzi sent a message to Tang Wan. His name on the postcard only has a small period. The avatar is of a ragdoll cat with blue eyes and a wide face. One hand pinched the ragdoll cat's ear, as if hugging it. Do you want positioning software? Not for private use. Tang Wan didn't know where Fu Wenzi got his idea from, but it was obvious that Tang Wan was still wary of Fu Wenzi. She didn't say what she was thinking, she just replied. Tang, well, thank you, brothers Hizzy, I wouldn't do such a thing. Fu Wenzi looked at Tang Wan's answer, which showed the politeness and alienation of the screen. He bit the mint in his mouth, twitched the corner of his mouth, and said without a smile, "Little liar." After he finished speaking, he transferred another file to Tang Wan and said something. Here is the introductory information, you can take a look. Of course, Fu Wenzi would not send out introductory information like this. Here, there is also a piece of software he made in the early stage. It's about positioning systems. It can be regarded as revenge for Tang Wan's perfunctory behavior just now, Fu Wenzi thought with some bad intentions. You can't just want to take benefits from yourself without giving yourself any benefits. This is not in line with the Fu family's family motto. He cannot lose. Tang Wan still didn't know what Fu Wenzi was thinking. She looked at the information Fu Wenzi sent and casually replied, "Thank you, brothers Hizzy." Then the file was opened. It's just that Fu Wenzi's calculations failed to make sense. No matter how smart Tang Wan was, he had never learned programming, so the string of codes he hid in the information was not discovered by Tang Wan in the end. But that's a story for another day. The little boy on the second floor suddenly exclaimed, "Eh." The little girl suddenly came close to him and asked, "What's wrong?" The little boy frowned slightly and said in a low voice, "Wenji brought someone in, and the IP seems to be still next to me." When the little girl heard this, she suddenly became unhappy. Humbling in his mouth, "Why is he like this? If I want to enter that software, he won't let me in." As he spoke, he stretched out his hand to grab the little boy's tablet, while still saying, why am I worse than that person?" The little boy refused to let him go, and even became a little angry because of the little girl's actions. "Lin Xiao, don't steal my things." The little boy's voice was not quiet. After all, if it were not for the cooperation between the two families, the little boy would not be willing to sit with Lin Xiao. "I don't want to play with her either. She doesn't understand what she likes, and she can't like it. She and she have no common language. And her actions were a little too outrageous." Lin Jiao saw that the little boy in front of her had no intention of comforting her, and she couldn't get off the stage. Her face was a little red because of anger, and her voice had a faint tremor, and she shouted to the little boy, "Qin Zizhu, I never want to pay attention to you again." Then he slammed the tablet in his hand to the ground, stamped his feet a few times, turned around, and ran away. However, none of this seemed to have any impact on Qin Zizhu. He just bent down to pick up the tablet that fell on the ground, patted the non-existent dust on it, and then raised his eyes to see Tang Wan downstairs. And the screen in her hand. He thought that he had probably found a newly added account. It's just that Qin Zizhu had no intention of coming forward to communicate. After all, in their software, only the skills of Chen Shuo and Fu Wenzi could convince him. Tang Wan felt that the way Qin Zizhu looked at her just now was a bit strange, but she just remembered it in her heart and did not grow up. "I always feel that in his eyes, no one present can enter his eyes." Very strange. This episode did not attract anyone's attention. Only Lin Jiao's little follower walked out uneasily. Probably because we were not real friends, no one said anything. Only Lu Ziyi, who had a good relationship with Qin Zizhu, said, "It's better to save some face." However, Qin Zizhu didn't even raise his head and continued to look at the tablet with his fingers moving very fast. With a ding-dong sound, Tang Wan's tablet made a crisp sound. In a group with only 5 people, an account named Sanshui has been talking. "Sanshui, how annoying. Can you please end this party quickly? I want to go home. I really don't want to sit in the same room with these little brats." It's so annoying, noisy and not quiet at all. Sans Hui, Lin Jiao is also very annoyed. She doesn't care about the people she calls, and just watches the excitement. Now it's over, everyone is unhappy. MD, she even snatched my tablet. I'm going to be angry, I'm really going to be angry. The administrator banned Sans Hui for 5 minutes. There was a bump, and a loud sound came from the second floor. Tang Wan paused slightly, then looked up at Qin Zizhu, whose eyes were red, and then looked at the screen. Putting her lips together, she thought in her heart. As expected, the external identity is all given by oneself. Who would have thought that Qin Zizhu, who doesn't like to talk to others, would be an irritable puppy in this small group? 5 minutes later, Qin Zizhu's ban was lifted. He started typing in the group again. The speed was so fast that Tang Wan almost lost sight of him. Sans Hui, Fu. Smell. Of. Why are you forbidding me? Didn't you say you can be your true self here? You want permissions, right? I'm really angry. Tang Wan had never seen this kind of friendly communication, and wanted to see how Fu Wenzi would handle this matter. See Fu Wenzi's answer. Stop making trouble. Stop scaring people. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 73. Tang Wan was slightly startled when he looked at the words Fu Wenzi typed. She doesn't think her relationship with Fu Wenzi is that good, and it doesn't seem accurate to say they are friends. After all, unlike Lu Ziyi, who was like family, and Go 11, who impressed Tang Wan with his forthrightness, Fu Wenzi was not the kind of person who was easily impressed. In Tang Wan's mind, Fu Wenzi is a bit like a medieval gentleman, and a bit like an operator holding chess pieces. He does not let people into his world easily. There is a sense of alienation from looking at the world with cold eyes, calm and self-possessed. He shouldn't have said such a thing. Perhaps it's because Fu Wenzi's stereotype in Tang Wan was so deep that Tang Wan not only didn't feel protected or moved, but even had a somewhat weird feeling. Fu Wenzi knew Qin Zizhu, so he must have known that he and Lu Lin had arrived at Xi's house. Similarly, Chen Chuo is also in this group, so in a few days, Fu Wenzi will definitely know about him, Go 11 and the others going to find Chen Chuo. In other words, no matter what he does during this period, he will know it. He doesn't even need to be by his side to know his every move. This is a terrible thing. Aware of this, Tang Wan did not withdraw from the group. She just changed her information. From invisible at the beginning, it was changed to visible to everyone. Since someone is trying to see his own life, the more he covers himself up, the more likely he is to want to pry. People are curious. But as long as it is put on the surface in an ordinary way, it will give rise to a somewhat boring feeling. Hence the temptation of holding the pipa and half covering your face. This is human nature's deep desire for inquiry. Fu Wenzi immediately received the reminder from Tang Wan to change his status. He took out a mint candy from the side and put it into his mouth. He looked at Qin Zizhu's constant complaints and said something disgusting. The reaction was so fast, this is what I discovered. On the other side, the Si family's banquet also officially began. The children walked out of the room and saw the person in the crowd at a glance. Unlike others, the new CEO of the Si family is a lame. He limped onto the stage with a gentleman's crutch in his hand. Lu Lin was still looking for Lu Ziyi and Tang Wan. When he saw them coming over, he pulled them to his side. He looked left and right to make sure Tang Wan was not injured, and then praised Lu Ziyi beside him. Okay, I know how to protect your aunt. Not bad, I'll buy you the toys you like when I get back. Lu Ziyi's eyes lit up, and just as he was about to speak, he heard Lu Lin continue, simulation equipment is not allowed, but I can give you a high-precision model. Although it is not a simulation device, the high-precision model is not bad either. Lu Ziyi couldn't control the joy in his eyes, and even said, don't worry. As long as I'm here, I will never let Tang Tang get hurt. Their voices were not loud, and they were not conspicuous in the noisy banquet. It's just that Grandma Si has Tang Wan in her eyes, so looking at Tang Wan, she feels a little regretful. Such a good and obedient child. Why is it not from their family? On the high platform, Siy, who had grey-white hair, glanced at the people below. There was no expression on his delicate and indifferent face, and there was not even any fluctuation in his eyes. It seemed that in his eyes, what he saw in front of him was not a human being, but just corpses that could talk. His voice was a little hoarse, and it didn't even sound nice. It was extremely inconsistent with his face and the aura of his body. Seems a bit abrupt. There was a sense of death about him, like a despair that had no expectations for anything. It was strange that Tang Wan stood next to Lu Lin and looked up at the man on the stage, but felt sad in his heart. They were strangers and did not know each other, but just looking at this face made Tang Wan feel sad. Lu Lin immediately felt something strange about Tang Wan. The temperature of Tang Wan's hand suddenly dropped. It was obviously in a warm environment, but the temperature in Tang Wan's hands just couldn't rise. Lu Lin looked at Tang Wan's dull look, squatted down, looked into Tang Wan's eyes, and asked with some concern, "What's the matter, Tang Tang? Are you feeling bored? Do you want me to take you out?" Tang Wan reacted immediately, stretched out his arms and hugged Lu Lin's neck, and then shook his head. She didn't want to embarrass Lu Lin. I don't want to be special either. But now she felt a little sad and had difficulty breathing. But it will get better soon. She is used to it. It will be fine soon. So he just stayed quiet in Lu Lin's arms for a while, and then let go. She regained her calm appearance. Lu Lin looked at her little adult appearance and couldn't help but stretched out his hand and rubbed Tang Wan's head. He was accidentally pricked by the jewelry on his head, which made Lu Lin gasp in pain. But fortunately, his trademark stinky face didn't break. Only Tang Wan knew that he had been stabbed. Tang Wan tilted his head, raised his hand, took off the hair ornament on his head, and then bumped Lu Lin's hand with his head, as if to comfort him. Lu Lin liked Tang Wan's silent and attentive way of moisturizing things, so he followed Tang Wan's strength and rubbed her head, saying, "It's okay, don't worry." Siy on the stage could clearly see what was going on under the stage. Speaking of it, he was actually not much older than Lu Lin, but the white hair on his head and the dead air on his body made him look much older. Just like Sinz, she is obviously about the same age as Aunt Lu, but there are more vicissitudes of life on her face. There are only two people in the Si family. Only Sinz and her son Siy. They are like exquisite jade objects, they look bright and shiny on the surface, but they are covered with spider web-like traces inside. Tang Wan looked at Siy with some worry. At some point, she would think that Siy was going to break. In other words, he is like a walking corpse now, seemingly without any vitality. Somewhat scary. However, Tang Wan raised his head and looked into those emotionless eyes. At that moment, Tang Wan seemed to see his body tremble slightly, and then rush towards him. The gentleman's crutch in his hand was thrown out at once, and what he saw in his eyes seemed to be something other than Tang Wan. But through Tang Wan, I am looking at another soul. Seeing the wind blowing under her feet, Grandma Si rushed up and hugged her tall son, even though she was wearing high heels. She shouted, "Siy! Wake up!" Siy's eyes fell on Tang Wan, scaring Tang Wan so much that he hid behind Lu Lin. Then his body kept shaking and he looked extremely embarrassed. Grandma Si quickly cordoned off the scene and called a private doctor to come and save the patient. She looked at Tang Wan with a sadness that she didn't even understand. She touched Tang Wan's face, then returned to her invincible look, and spoke to Lu Lin. I'm sorry for frightening you. After I finish handling the matter here, I will definitely come to apologize. Thanks to Haibao for not replying to the message and Kanako for the rewards. Thanks to Haibao for not replying to messages, pay. Winnie 21, Xiao's Hizzy, do you like candy, lemon is not cute, and the 6 treasures for their monthly votes. Finally, thank you all for your more than 1,000 recommendation votes last week. Thank you all for your likes. I don't know what to say, so I can only add another chapter to express my happiness. In addition, I wish you all a happy new year in advance and may you make a lot of money in the new year. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 74. The expression on Lu Lin's face was still that disgusting, but thinking about Siy, this lunatic, he didn't say anything unpleasant after all. The children around were frightened by the scene in front of them. Even though their parents repeatedly told them not to show their rude side, they could not control it. The expressions on their faces still showed some fear. Only Tang Wan, protected by Lu Lin, stretched out his little head and looked at the man who fell on the ground. The elegant and powerful Grandma Si on the side had obvious anxiety on her face, and her eyes were full of sadness that was so thick that it couldn't be resolved. Tang Wan looked at her, suddenly stepped forward and handed her a tissue. There were so many people in such a huge venue, but no one handed her a tissue. Tang Wan shouted in a low voice, calling Grandma Si's attention. Her beautiful eyes suddenly fell on Tang Wan's face. Then he reached out and hugged Tang Wan, hugged her tightly, and repeated over and over again in a low voice that only the two of them could hear, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Grandma apologizes to you for scaring you. Tang Wan stretched out her hand and hugged Grandma Si. Then he imitated Lu Lin's comforting movements and calmed Grandma Si's mood little by little. She was not frightened. It's just that I can't stay at the scene anymore. Lu Lin returned home with his 2 cubs and complained to Grandma Lu, Si's illness seems to be getting worse. Seriously, should I consider not cooperating with them? Grandpa Lu on the side glanced at Lu Lin, snorted and said, you brat, what do you know? The heirs of the Si family are like this, and their business sectors have not been bitten off, so you should be vigilant. Lu Lin replied angrily, but the way he looks really makes people worry that he is not going to die soon. Grandpa Lu pushed his eyes on the bridge of his nose and shook his head, you don't understand. Siy doesn't dare to let himself die. Lu Lin's information is limited, so he naturally doesn't understand these things. Just thinking about what happened in Tangwan at the banquet today, I feel a little worried. When Siy's eyes fell on Tangwan, it was when he became ill, and almost everyone saw it. Thinking of this, Lu Lin's eyes fell on the little kid sitting on the sofa. Looking at her unaffected look, he breathed a sigh of relief. That's okay, don't be affected by bad things. However, Tangwan was just replying to Fu Wenzi's message. Something happened to the Si family. Tang, well, the CEO of Sijia is not feeling well. After replying this sentence, Tangwan closed the chat, then clicked on the software and began to design what he wanted in it. Finally, she designed a small self-destruction program based on the information sent by Fu Wenzi. Something similar to a virus. If it is implanted into an idea device, it will leave traces and then self-destruct. Of course, as long as everything exists, it will definitely leave traces. The magical thing about this software is that after it self-destructs, it will fall into the code like a dividing cell, integrate with them, and become one of them. This software is of no use, and it doesn't even damage the original software. But this is what Tangwan wants. Moisturize things into the software silently, and then upgrade them silently. While Tangwan was building the software, Fu Wenzi was also guessing Tangwan's movements through the software. It wasn't until the software was somewhat formed that he called Qin Zizhu and asked him to look at it together. Sanshui, what are you doing? What are you asking me to see for such a pediatric thing? Sanshui, isn't the self-destruct program a bug? Sanshui, huh? No, why are they upgrading? Sanshui, it's a pity. The design is good, but it is of no practical use, and there are too many layers, so it is unlikely to be mass-produced. How about using it for drone tracking? When Qin Zizhu saw these words, he immediately understood what Fu Wenzi meant. However, this should require many experiments. Qin Zizhu recorded this design and then uploaded it to his own software pool to prepare for testing. Tang Wan still didn't know that his own small upgrade system gave them this inspiration. Her technique is not yet mature, and there is even some lag during construction. One day is definitely not enough. Tang Wan simply wrote some code and waited for dark. Since returning to the Lu family with Lu Lin, Tang Wan has felt the difference in temperature. Also know where the orphanage is. It is a beautiful city full of flowers and a slow pace of life called Huainan. The opposite side of Huainan is the territory of other countries. A very long border line, majestically guarding the mountains and rivers of the motherland. The location where the Lu family is located is the heart of the motherland, named Jingqiao. The two places are far apart and have very different living habits, but there is not much discomfort in Tangwan. While she was lying on the bed, looking at the stars in the sky, she felt a little more peaceful. She carefully put the tablet away, switched to the second system, and hid the software system that Fu Wenzi handed over. Then I hugged the cat doll on the pillow, rubbed it with its soft face, and fell asleep peacefully. The next day, just after dawn, Lu Ziyi came to the old house and took Tangwan to find Go 11. I was chattering along the way, looking very excited. 1111 must not have gotten up yet, let's go and scare her. Tangwan glanced at Lu Ziyi with suspicion, feeling that Lu Ziyi with such a mentality would probably get beaten. You must know that Go 11's beating hurts. But Lu Ziyi was like an invincible sunshine puppy, he would get in front of Go 11 even though he knew he would be beaten. Tangwan shook his head helplessly, unable to understand. Soon, they arrived at their destination. The driver opened the door for them, Tangwan got out of the car, and raised a tablet to the driver's uncle, which read, "Thanks." Then he followed Lu Ziyi into a villa. The housekeeper of Go 11's family has long received the news that Tangwan and Lu Ziyi are coming, and has been standing at the door waiting for the two young distinguished guests. Just when he saw Tangwan and Lu Ziyi, the expression on the housekeeper's face was a little strange. However, as a housekeeper, he is a professional. So he took Tangwan and Lu Ziyi into the villa. They first got on the scooter and got off after driving for 10 minutes. Before anyone could walk in, they heard an angry female voice ringing in the room. How many times have I told you, you can't punch people in the face, if you punch them in the face like this, doesn't it mean we are unreasonable? Then Go 11's unconvinced voice sounded inside. I don't care, who told them to be dirty-mouthed? I just punched them lightly. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 75. Chapter 75 Miss the target, please aim and shoot again. Tangwan clearly heard Lu Ziyi next to her and swallowed quietly. Then I heard him murmuring to himself in a low voice, it's a good thing I told her in advance, otherwise she would have punched me too. Before they could stand outside for a long time, the steward led them inside. The living room of Go 11's house doesn't look like a living room, but like a huge training ground. Surrounded by gloves and targets. And some things Tangwan doesn't know. As soon as Go 11 saw Tangwan, she immediately ran to Tangwan, then stretched out her hand, hugged Tangwan tightly, rubbed her face hard against Tangwan's face, and said, Tang Tang, you are getting cuter and cuter. Woo, squishy, squishy kitten. Tang Tang, come hang out with me and I'll teach you how to shoot, my shooting score is really high. Tang Wan was so confused by Go 11's movements that she didn't know how to move her hands. She stared blankly at the lady standing behind Go 11, feeling that she was different from the sisters and aunts she had met before. If women are described as flowers, then Go 11's mother is probably the most vital and vigorous sunflower. She grows wildly upwards. His skin is not fair, but has a brass color with a very rustic atmosphere. His facial features are extremely deep, and his black hair is combed casually behind his back. Tang Wan saw this kind of arrogant vitality for the first time, and he was stunned for a moment. Go 11's mother took the initiative to come over, pulled Tang Wan out of Go 11's arms, and then gave her a kiss on her soft face. He said, "Wow wow wow, so cute. Which family are you from?" Even the sound was suppressed unconsciously. The housekeeper standing at the door shuddered, then looked in the direction of the kitchen, feeling a little worried. And Go 11 doesn't care that her mother likes Tang Wan. After all, in her heart, Tang Wan is like her sister. Even if she is not a sister, she is still the best friend. Who told Tang Tang to be so gentle, so well behaved, and so pretty? Like a kitten. Lu Ziyi looked at the woman in front of him and subconsciously stepped forward to Tang Wan back. Just kidding, I have never kissed Tang Wan on the face to express intimacy, how could I let this strange woman do it? Just when the chaos was about to begin, a pink figure came out of the kitchen. He quickly pulled Tang Wan out of Go 11's mother's arms, and then quickly covered Go 11's mother's face with a towel. He quickly pushed the three cubs out. Finally, he hugged Go 11's mother and said, "What's wrong with you, baby, how can you kiss another baby?" When Tang Wan's three cubs stood at the door, Tang Wan realized that the figure just now seemed to be Go 11's father, Go Yuan. I just didn't expect that a silent writer who doesn't like to talk on the show can be so clingy at home. However, Go 11, who was pushed out, had long been used to it. She patted the non-existent dust on her pants, stood up, and said to Tang Wan nonchalantly, "Let's go to Chen Shuo's house to play. I heard that his family has built a new shooting range. I'm going to give him a good start." Tang Wan's ears twitched when he heard Go 11's words. She wanted to ask Go 11 where she got the information. I always feel that this information was revealed from Fu Wenzi. But something went wrong and Tang Wan didn't ask. Perhaps it's also to save some underwear among friends. Chen Shuo's home and Go 11's home are very close to each other, and it takes half an hour to get there by bus from the park. Of course, before departure, Lu Lin actually prepared some gifts for Tang Wan for the children, and tried to make Tang Wan make bear biscuits overnight. In the end, he was ruthlessly rejected by Tang Wan. Of course Tang Wan is not really that hard-hearted. She can refuse to give to anyone, but it is impossible not to give to Lu Lin. So Tang Wan went behind Lu Lin's back and left him a full box of bear biscuits in the kitchen. Even took out a piece of paper and wrote the location on the refrigerator. You can see it when Lu Lin goes to get juice from the refrigerator. Just when the three cubs in Tang Wan arrived at Chen Shuo's house, Lu Lin also saw the note on the refrigerator and found the full box of biscuits. So he took dozens of photos, selected the most beautiful one, and added Tang Wan's message. Then he leaned in front of the marble table and picked up a bear biscuit that looked delicious. Posted a message in moments. "Lu Lin, oh my Tang Tang is really too sensible. She even made me a lot of cookies when we went out to play. My old father really loved her." Photo of bear biscuits, photo of note, selfie of Lu Lin. After a while, there was the first message below. "Toulouse : Didn't you take your medicine today? Lu Yao, don't eat it, bring it to me. Go Yuan, please share the recipe. Arzixi also likes to eat it." Fu Wenzi saw his father's post on moments, and a pair of emotionless eyes fell on his father's face. Father and son were silent, as if they were sulking. In the empty villa, there were two lonely people, one large and one small, looking pitiful and desolate. After a while, Mr. Fu said, the next filming location of the program team will be changed to Xiangjiang. The previous place in Huainan was too dangerous and not suitable for filming. When Fu Wenzi heard this, he was silent for a moment, and slightly opened his thin lips. Wouldn't it be better to stay away from that position? No, the signal there is a bit unstable, and your watch is at risk of losing signal there. When Fu Wenzi heard this, he narrowed his eyes slightly, and a look of suspicion appeared on his face that was very similar to Mr. Fu's. Father, are you hiding something from me? Mr. Fu already knew that his son had a keen sense and nodded without deceiving him. The situation over there is a bit complicated. It is for your own good to change the place. The police didn't catch anyone and let them run away, right? Mr. Fu didn't expect Fu Wenzi to guess so accurately, so he could only nod helplessly. Fu Wenzi's eyes darkened and he did not speak again. It was just the computer in front of him, and the code on it kept sliding. If Tang Wan were at the scene, he would probably be able to see the shadow of his own design from the few lines of code inside. The structure she designed gradually took shape with the help of Fu Wenzi. On the other side, Tang Wan, with the help of Go 11, put on goggles and smart training clothes, faced the target in the distance, and pressed the trigger. With a bump sound, the AI machine in the distance announced Tang Wan's shooting results in a gentle male voice. Missed the target, please aim before proceeding to the next step. Ification. Just when Go 11 was about to comfort Tang Wan, a burst of muffled laughter came from behind them. Ha ha ha, which family are you a kid from? You can't even hit a target so close. Hold on, babies. I'm a little busy today, so I'll resume the second update. I have to get up early to take the train tomorrow to catch the Spring Festival travel rush, but it's really too late, woo woo QWQ. Thanks to Lazy 213 and Heibao who can't reply to the message and the two treasures for their rewards. Thanks to Young Master, I can't type this picture, so give me a hug. Kanako, Book Friends 20230907341846, Book Friends 202306109335. B. Heibao can't reply to the message, Yunyi Qingzhou, Xiao Ziohanyu, Lotus. CD8 Treasures monthly ticket. Happy New Year to everyone, and I will take the time to make up for any extra updates you owe. Love you guys. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 76. Tang Wan heard the sound and turned her head subconsciously. However, the muzzle of the gun in her hand was facing the ground, almost intimate contact with the ground. The young man behind Tang Wan saw Tang Wan's movements and rushed to Tang Wan, hugged Tang Wan and lifted her up. He said, "What are you doing?" Then his eyes fell on the of the gun that Tang Wan had been holding onto, and he laughed out loud in hindsight, "You're pretty good." Tang Wan heard this groundless accusation and looked at the young man in front of him with innocent eyes. Those beautiful eyes are full of pure colors, and the head is tilted, like a ragdoll cat that doesn't like to talk. The young man shook his wrist, as if shaking a ragdoll cat, and asked, "Why don't you speak?" His movements seemed a bit rough, but in fact they were very measured and did not cause Tang Wan any discomfort. It's just that this kind of action still makes the two friends around me a little worried. Except Chenchuo. Go 11 couldn't bear it at first, so she rushed forward and kicked the young man's calf, while still saying harsh words, "Let go of Tang Tang, or I will kick your feet off." Lu Ziyi on the side quickly took Go 11's hand and pulled her back, away from the young man, preparing to be polite before fighting. Unlike Go 11, Lu Ziyi knew this young man is the eldest son of the Chen family. Different from his poisonous-tongued brother, This brother named Chen Hexiao is an out-and-out bad boy. Belongs to the kind of people who get a headache when their parents mention it. Ever since he was very young, Chen Hexiao has been a typical example of disobedience. In the Chen family, a scholarly family, he insisted on learning martial arts and sanda. When I get a little older, I will play esports games. But there is no way, no matter how deviant he has always achieved stable results and has never received an A. Chen Hexiao is 10 years older than Tang Wan. He has just entered high school this year and is at an energetic age. Lu Ziyi didn't want to argue with Chen Hexiao, let alone Chen Hexiao hurt his friend, so he said, "Tang Tang can't speak, please don't embarrass Tang Tang." At this point, Lu Ziyi paused for a moment, then stretched out his hand and faced Chen Hexiao with a strong attitude, "Please put down Tang Tang and return it to me." Chen Hexiao looked at the two cubs in front of him who were facing him as if they were on the verge of a formidable enemy. He did not let go of his hands, but instead lifted Tang Wan higher. He was stunned to prevent them from touching Tang Wan, and he still owed something. Said, "You want me to give it back to you, then you may have to pay something. You know me, I only do things according to my mood. I'm not in a good mood right now, so I don't want to give this Tang Tang back to you." Tang Wan heard what he said and glanced at this brother who had a somewhat bad personality, but she felt a little strange in her heart. She didn't feel any unhappy mood from this brother, but she just thought he might be a little bored. "I am teasing Lu Ziyi and Go 11. Thinking of this, Tang Wan also looked at Chen Shuo who was sitting beside him. "I found that he did not behave strangely. It seems that I have been accustomed to it for a long time." Tang Wan probably guessed that the brother in front of him probably just had a bad personality. Just when Tang Wan was thinking this, Lu Ziyi was startled by Chen Hexiao's words. He grabbed Go 11, who was about to fight, and then said, "What can we do?" This question is very clever. It does not intensify the contradiction by saying why in a dull manner. Instead, put yourself on an equal footing and make a fair deal. Although Chen Hexiao knew Lu Ziyi's little thoughts, he didn't care. In other words, he was not dissatisfied or surprised by this. Children who grow up in their circle, even at an early age, will seize their opportunities at the first moment. Perspective and judgment are important factors in determining the result. Complaining is useless, that is what weak people do. Regrouping is the key to victory. Chen Hexiao pretended to think for a moment, then picked up the shooting gun from Tang Wan's hand, shook it a few times, and then said, "Just use this. I'll give you 5 bullets. As long as your combined results are better than mine, you can take this little kid back. But if there is no one higher than me." Speaking of this, Chen Hexiao paused for a moment, then placed Tang Wan next to Chen Shuo, and the old said, "Then it's okay for us to have one more sister." Tang Wan's existence is no secret in Jingqiao. It's just that most people have never seen Tang Wan and don't know her specific appearance. But the children can't hold back their words. As long as they follow their words looks most like a kitten, you can recognize Tang Wan at a glance. She looks so smart, and she looks like a lovable child at first glance. Always wear clothes that cover most of the body, revealing only a fair and tender face, looking like a wary little animal. It makes people feel pity. Even Chen Hexiao, who was not very caring, teased Tang Wan the first time he saw her. Tang Wan sat next to Chen Shuo and quietly watched Chen Shuo build the test environment. Inexplicably, he felt that a few lines of code in it were familiar. "It's the code you uploaded yesterday. I heard that it was expanded and used differently from your design. It will probably be put into use in the future, and you will get a share of it." Tang Wan actually didn't mean this. She was just curious about Chen Shuo's construction method. It seemed that the calculation logic was different from what she and Fu Wenzi had done. However, Chen Shuo held the computer and turned slightly sideways. It seemed like he was trying to distance himself from Tang Wan. Tang Wan is very familiar with this kind of action. Repulsion, dislike, disgust. These negative emotions are all accompanied by Tang Wan's growth. She recognized people's malicious intentions prematurely, so she has always been cautious. But, perhaps because of meeting Lu Lin, or perhaps because of meeting Go 11, Lu Ziyi and others on the show, she temporarily forgot that she was an unpleasant child. That's why I felt a little carried away for a while. Tang Wan didn't even wait for Chen Chuo to say anything else, he turned around and sat further away. She neither cries nor makes a fuss, is calm and frankly accepts the fact that she is not liked. And get used to it. Just squeezed his hand slowly, looking a little uneasy. She thought that she was no longer the same as before. It turns out that I am still disliked by others. Then he would not be happy if he came to Chen Chuo's house to play, right? Should I leave early? Just when Tang Wan was thinking wildly, the sound of a computer closing suddenly came from next to him. The voice was a little crisp, which made Tang Wan on the side stunned for a moment. But she didn't dare to raise her head or look at Chen Chuo's disgusted eyes, so she subconsciously curled up her body, trying to deceive herself and pretend that she wasn't disliked. However, the next second, Chen Chuo's cold voice came, interrupting Tang Wan's panic. I don't hate you. I'm just not used to being so close to people. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 77. This sound was louder than all the sounds at this moment, even though there were many gunshots not far away. But to Tang Wan's ears, it was not as loud as the sentence. Chen Chuo's face still looked a little world-weary, but his cold eyes refused to look at Tang Wan. Perhaps, this is also the first time he explains it to others. So I was a little unskilled, my ears were flushed, and I was particularly embarrassed. After saying these two sentences, Chen Chuo had used up all his energy. He immediately turned around, his back to Tang Wan, and he looked like a black bear against the backdrop of black clothes. This was the first time Tang Wan realized that the vicious-tongued Chen Chuo had such a cute side. She stood up quietly, walked to Chen Chuo, turned on his computer, and looked at the programs that were still running, as if the misunderstanding had not happened. A kitten that does not hold grudges. Chen Chuo suddenly had this idea in his mind. No wonder Fu Wenzi, a person with cold and selfish blood in his bones, was willing to compromise for Tang Wan. To people like them, pure emotion is like a hungry wolf seeing the most delicious food. Who can't help but take a bite? At least, for Chen Chuo, Tang Wan like this is like a delicious cake, tempting him to bite. However, he also knows his own nature. He has always been indifferent and nothing can control him. Others looked at him indifferently, but in fact he had little awareness of everything. But just now, when Tang Wanli came closer to him, he seemed to see a lot of colors exploding in front of his eyes. Let his world filled with only himself become more splendid and bright. Chen Chuo had a rare feeling of fear. In front of you are sweets with a sweet smell, luring you towards the world full of uncertainty. Not to mention, there is an evil dragon staring at Tang Wan now. He was also observing this sudden candy, wanting to see what changes this uncertain candy would bring to this swamp-like Vanity Fair. The blush on Chen Chuo's ears faded, and his heart returned to a calm state. It seemed that except for the code in his hand, nothing could attract his attention. It's just that a crystal ember fell on the heart lake and rippled, and the ripples came to the shore, and the vines that grew wildly also tasted the first sour sweetness. Chen Hexiao shot 9 and 10 rings. On the last shot, a wicked smile appeared on his lips, as if he was enjoying a good show. Go 11's shooting results are really not good. Compared to someone like Chen Hexiao who is talented and diligent in practice, she can only shoot at the level of 6 rings. Not to mention that the target in front of you is still moving. This is even more difficult to fight. Finally Chen Hexiao fired the last shot. The AI in the distance sounded a voice that broke Go 11's heart. 10 rings, congratulations on reaching the top, please keep up the good work. Lu Ziyi is not a good shooter. His movements are also a little shaky and he is not confident. When things have developed to this point, they can no longer look back. But he didn't want to lose Tang Wan to Chen Hexiao. Only Chen Shuo, who was outside the arena, watched the farce with cold eyes, and then said, "Aren't you worried? Aren't you worried about being exported? Aren't you worried about not being able to go back?" Tang Wan had a puzzled look on his face, then raised his hand and lifted the tablet in his hand, which read, "I am an independent individual. Such a bet is not valid." Chen Shuo looked at these two sentences on Tang Wan's tablet and suddenly felt the urge to laugh. Speaking of it, almost everyone will be blinded by the existing conditions when they are taken as a prize in a bet, and begin to worry about their own ownership rights. However, in fact, everyone is an independent individual, and there are very few people who can jump out of it immediately. Tang Wan didn't know why Chen Shuo shut up in the middle of speaking. She just took a look at how Chen Hexiao and the others were shooting, and then looked at the computer in Chen Shuo's hand to learn the programming inside. "Although I am very busy, I have also learned a lot." Finally, Lu Ziyi fired the last shot. There was a bump and the bullet missed the target. AI's voice sounded again, falling in Lu Ziyi's ears, as if it was mocking his naivete. He couldn't control his emotions. He grabbed Chen Hexiao's wrist and said, "Do it again. I can't give Tang Wan to you." Lu Ziyi did not forget what Lu Lin said about protecting Tang Wan. It is impossible for him to give Tang Wan to anyone else. But Chen Hexiao just raised his slightly mean eyes, looked at Lu Ziyi with a somewhat dissatisfied look, and said provocatively, "Are you trying to cheat? Can't afford to lose." Lu Ziyi was stunned when he heard this. Go 11 on the side had already started crying, which made Chen Hexiao's head buzz and hurt. Go 11 didn't know there were so many twists and turns. She only knew that she and Lu Ziyi had lost the game, and Tang Wan would become someone else's. She finally couldn't help it, and rushed towards Chen Hexiao like a small firecracker, shouting, "Bad guy! I'll beat you to death." Chen Hexiao had a bad temper, so he grabbed Go 11, shook the calf-like kid threateningly, and threatened, "If you make trouble again, I will throw you out." "Throw it? Throw it? You are not allowed to grab Tang Tang, or you are not allowed to do any harm to Tang Tang." Chen Hexiao really couldn't understand the brain circuits of such little cubs, so he could only wave to the two cubs who were watching the fun outside the field, and said in a somewhat impatient tone, "Why don't you come here quickly? Why are you just standing there? If you don't come here and take them away, I'll really beat them up." Chen Shuo then slowly stood up and slowly prepared to walk towards his little friend. However, the one who was faster than him was Tang Wan beside him. Like a gust of wind, Tang Wan rushed to the side of Lu Ziyi and Go 11, then grabbed Go 11's feet, stabilized Go 11's body, and looked directly at Chen Hexiao with a pair of beautiful eyes. Comparing Chen Hexiao's figure, Tang Wan is undoubtedly tiny. Her body was also trembling with fear, but more importantly, a real desire for protection surged out of her body. She is small and fragile, like a weed. But in the face of danger, he used all his strength to protect his friends. For a selfish person, this is such a dazzling character. Even Chen Hexiao is no exception. If anything, he wanted Tang Wan at first just to tease them. But now, Tang Wan has a concrete expression in front of his eyes, which makes him really want to have it a little more. Just when Chen Hexiao was about to do something, Chen Shuo's cold boyish voice sounded beside him. "Brother, you can't. Thanks to Shanjia and Beizai for the great reward." "Thanks, stranger, book friend 2023-061-0935. B. Dream and Reality, Bangchaka, Manman Baiyi. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 78. Chapter 78 Chocolate Cake. Chen Hexiao's eyes fell on his younger brother, his emotionless eyes with a playful smile. He and Chen Chuo have the same blood flowing in their bodies, and no one knows his younger brother better than himself. If you are introverted and indifferent, then your brother is extroverted and indifferent, and he doesn't even bother to show hypocrisy. Now, there was actually some panic in his eyes, as if he was worried about the little cub in front of him. Suddenly, Chen Hexiao let go of his hand and let go 11 fall into Tang Wan's arms. The three cubs hugged each other and looked at the somewhat nervous Chen Hexiao warily, which made him feel a little bored. Only the little kid who seemed willing to give up himself was interesting. These people all looked the same. Whether it is surprise, fear, or other greedy emotions, there are traces to follow and they can be inferred. Only the mute cub, no one knows what she can do for others. What is the limit of her patience? Where is her upper limit? For Chen Hexiao, all these unknown things are full of charm. It was a pity that the little cub in front of him looked at him with hostile eyes, which made him feel a little regretful. Even his indifferent brother seemed to have different ideas about the little boy in front of him. Looks a little different. Tang Wan didn't know what the young man in front of him was thinking. She only felt the danger at that moment. It seems that if he doesn't stop them, the young man in front of him will really hurt Lu Ziyi and Go 11. Hence, her body reacted faster than Tang Wan's reason. Tang Wan rushed out as soon as he felt the danger. Protect your friends, protect the things you care about, and protect everything you care about. Tang Wan didn't know where this idea came from. I only know that the thought of protecting beauty is like an obsession that is integrated into my bones. She is guiding Tang Wan all the time, moving forward in a certain direction without looking back. But Chen Hexiao in front of him just spread his hands, lowered the corners of his mouth, and said in disgust, "It's boring." When Chen Hexiao's figure disappeared from the eyes of the little boy, Go 11's body softened and she fell directly into Tang Wan's arms. Tang Wan looked down at Go 11, who was still shivering, and found that she looked like she had been fished out of the water. His body was wet with sweat. He looked pale as never before. Tang Wan pursed her lips, feeling a little bit more unhappy about Chen Hexiao than she had ever seen in her heart. His joke was a little too much. Suddenly, Go 11 sobbed, and then burst into tears. She hugged Tang Wan tightly and shouted, "Tang Tang! I'm sorry. I didn't protect you. Ugh, I almost lost you." Tang Wan has never seen such a crybaby like Go 11. Perhaps she has seen them, but those little cubs did not leave any strong traces in Tang Wan's life, so Tang Wan didn't pay too much attention to them. Only Go 11, who squeezed into the small world of Tang Wan with a strong posture, was like a sunflower about to bloom, using her bright colors to illuminate the barren and boring world of Tang Wan. So, in Tang Wan's world, a sunflower is also blooming in bud, swaying wildly with the changing seasons. But her crying was too loud, which made Tang Wan feel a little distressed. Go 11 seemed to vent the sadness that Tang Wan couldn't shout out, hugging Tang Wan tightly, like a lost treasure. Even Lu Ziyi, who had always been at odds with Go 11, did not go to trouble Go 11 this time. Instead, he stayed by the side of the two cubs, like a sacred beast protecting treasures. Tang Wan was hugged by them, and their eyes looked around cautiously. The little Tang Wan was hugged by them, looking a little helpless. It's just that she didn't stop her two friends, and her expression was actually a bit kind. Looking at their brainless looks, Chen Chuo silently put away his computer and walked faster. I really want to pretend I don't know them. It feels like walking with them is like they are brainless. While having lunch at Chen Chuo's house, Tang Wan took out the bear biscuits he had prepared and gave everyone a box. She has not forgotten even Lu Ziyi, who is a member of her family. Of course, these small boxes may look more delicate than the big one from Lu Lin. By some strange coincidence, Chen Shuo took a photo of the cookie box in front of him and sent it to the group of 5 of them. Soon, there was the first message. Sans Hui, whose biscuits are these? It looked delicious. The store sent it to me and I asked the nanny to buy it. Even that friend who was jet-lagged abroad was bubbling over. KIC Chris also asked for this biscuit. Where did he buy it? I want to buy it to make him greedy. After a while, Chen Shuo answered them. Just when he was typing, a thin layer of sweat appeared on his fingertips, and he felt a little excited when typing on the keyboard. Perhaps this is the mood of showing off. Chen Shuo thought a little casually. See, I want to eat shit. These are cookies made by Tang Tang. Why doesn't Chris want to go to heaven? Tang Wan was about to take a bite of the cake in his hand, but his watch kept beeping. Following Chen Shuo's actions, Tang Wan sighed. Suddenly I remembered a sentence I saw somewhere. Men are childish at any age. Lu Lin hands out biscuits in the morning, and Chen Shuo hands them out in the afternoon. It makes my private chats clamoring for cookies. What can Tang Wan do? She could only reply one by one. She couldn't make cookies in a short time. She was really busy during this period, so she had to wait until next time. Until the last one, Fu Wenzi's message. He is not for cookies, just a video. The above is the test environment he built and a simple software application. The code used is not any other code, it happens to be the one designed by Tang Wan. Tang Wan was fascinated when he saw a small animation made of a string of codes at the bottom of the program. There are only a few words on it. I will make this program and give you a small cake in exchange for it. Isn't that too much? Tang Wan. No wonder he kept silent, he was waiting for me in this place. Tang Wan really wanted this program. After thinking about a small cake, it was not a particularly difficult task, so he agreed and said a few nice words. Brothers Hizzy is so awesome, thank you Brothers Hizzy. What kind of cake does Brothers Hizzy like? Fu Wenzi looked at the message that was replied faster than usual, looked at the brown bear biscuits on the other screen, and replied. Chocolate. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 79. Tang Wan looked at the information in front of him, and then glanced at Go 11, who was still in love with the bear biscuits. He felt that this couldn't be a coincidence, right? So, in fact, even Fu Wenzi secretly compares himself with others. Chen Shuo on the side didn't know that his friend had already taken the lead and cheated him out of the cake. He was still showing off his cookies, which made Qin Zizhu very envious. He doesn't have any extra hobbies. Apart from programming, his favorite thing is eating. Eat something delicious. But now it was obvious that there was a delicious biscuit placed in front of him, but he couldn't eat it. This was such a sad thing. Thinking of this, Qin Zizhu couldn't help crying. But before his tears fell, the ant in the kitchen brought him his favorite abalone and pork belly. Not to mention it's hot, it's fragrant and beautiful, and it's full of color, flavor, and flavor. At once, Qin Zizhu's sadness was driven away. Not only that, Qin Zizhu also shared his favorite dishes in the group. Sans Hui, this abalone and pork belly is really delicious, my aunt is a master at making it. Sans Hui, Tang Wan, come to my house as a guest when you have time. You make me biscuits, and I'll ask auntie to make abalone and pork belly for you. It sounds like an exchange of equal value. Only the children present know that this is obviously evil. Because the relationship with Tang Wan is not good, that's why he used this method to ask Tang Wan to give him biscuits. It's a pity that Tang Wan's attention is now attracted by the software Fu Wenzi sent out, and he has no time to watch the group chat. Qin Ziju's wish came true. Qin Ziju looked at the delicious biscuits in the group. He felt a little uncomfortable and poked the soft pork belly in front of him with his chopsticks, muttering to himself. Is it really that my pork belly is not delicious? So unattractive? Qin Ziju was puzzled, and then he ate several mouthfuls of braised pork. He felt that Tang Wan was really lacking in taste. Obviously the abalone braised pork is the most delicious. On the other side, Tang Wan and others said goodbye to Chen Chuo and went back to their homes. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Grandma Si and Si Hui sitting in the living room of the old house. Tang Wan didn't know what their atmosphere was like before he came in. He just felt that the scene he saw when he came in was quite cold. Brother Lulin, with a bad face, crossed his hands on his chest and looked very displeased. Grandma Si and Si Hui sat upright, as if there was a wooden stick supporting their backbones, preventing them from bending. It looks good, but it's too tiring. Looking tired. After Tang Wan came back, Si Hui seemed to suddenly come to life, his eyes suddenly became more radiant, and the look he looked at Tang Wan was warm. But when he met Tang Wan's eyes, he became calm again. Tang Wan looked at him as if he were a stranger. Though, they are indeed strangers. Lulin, who had been silent until now, waved to Tang Wan with a lower voice than usual, Tang Tang, come here. Tang Wan ran directly to Lulin and was hugged by Lulin. In the familiar embrace, Tang Wan became even more well-behaved. The whole person was nestled in Lulin's arms, like a kitten with its belly spread out. He also put away his paws, revealing only soft, pink paw pads, which are not harmful at all. Then Tang Wan heard Lulin say, I adopted Tang Tang. And Si, you don't have to worry about Tang Tang not having money to spend. There is no need to send a card to apologize. Tang Tang will not become someone else's child. Speaking of this, Lulin hugged Tang Wan tighter, and his tone was unprecedentedly serious. From the moment I adopted Tang Wan, I regarded her as a family member. I don't want to use words like for your own good and for her own good as an excuse to hand her over to someone else, not even you. I won't give Tang Wan the illusion of being abandoned. As Tang Wan's brother for one day, I will be her brother for the rest of my life. It's natural for a brother to protect and love his sister, and it makes sense no matter where he goes. Hearing these words, Tang Wan subconsciously reached out and grabbed Lulin's collar. The feeling of being firmly chosen by someone turns out to be like this, and it will give you a lot more confidence. Tang Wan saw that Grandma Si's face was a little tense. It seemed that this was the first time she had been lectured like this by a junior. At this moment, Si, who had been silent until now, suddenly spoke. I don't mean to this little thing from you, it's just that my mother likes it and wants to be a godmother. Have sex? Tang Wan tilted her head, remembering what Grandma Lu said that Grandma Si was so sad because her baby was gone. So she wants to consider herself as her godmother now because she looks like her baby? Tang Wan felt a strange emotion in her heart. Before she could think it through, she heard Lulin say again, no, it's enough for Tang Wan to have us. This is a treasure I found, so it belongs to me. Lulin can let Tang Wan play with other people, but her family can only be herself. Unless there is a blood relationship. But as soon as this thought crossed Lulin's mind, he became a little unhappy. I didn't want Tang Tang in the past, and the family members I have found now are not very good either. Grandma Si saw Lulin's strong look and knew that she was being unreasonable, so she didn't say anything more. Sure enough, who wants to have their children robbed? Grandma Si was preparing to go back with Si, who was still a little stubborn. But Si, who was almost 30 years old, felt like his buttocks were stuck. He was sitting on the sofa, unwilling to stand up. Until Grandma Si couldn't bear it and said, why are you still here? Isn't it her who promised me not to embarrass others? Si then slowly raised his head and looked at Lulin and Tang Wan with a somewhat blank look. Finally his eyes fell on Tang Wan, then he stood up, stood beside Lu Lin, and grabbed Tang Wan's hand. Lu Lin became popular immediately. What? Haven't you seen yourself still standing here? Just when Lu Lin was about to lose his temper, Sci-fi suddenly took out a black card and put it in Tang Wan's hand. He also said, "Take it first." Tang Wan wanted to refuse, but Sci-fi's eyes were very sad, as if he was looking at another person through Tang Wan. And in Tang Wan's eyes, he was like porcelain that was about to break. It seems that if he rejects him, he will cry. But he clearly looks so calm and rational. Seeing Tang Wan accept the black card, Sci left with Grandma Si contentedly. Lu Lin, who was holding Tang Wan on the side, said with a sour tone. Tang Tang is so popular, everyone rushes to send money to Tang Tang. As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Wan reached out and hugged his face. Then he rubbed Lu Lin's face with his soft little face, and looked at Lu Lin with a pair of black grape-like eyes, as if he was talking. You are the best. This is the editor who has saved the manuscript. I will add more updates after the Chinese New Year. There is really no extra manuscript. If you have any questions, please wait until Tutu comes home. Wish everyone a happy new year and make a fortune. The little mute's life was stolen, and the wealthy boss comes to spoil him. Author, do you want to eat rabbit head? Chapter 80. Lu Lin was easily coaxed by Tang Wan. Looking at the little kid in front of him, he reached out angrily and hugged the back of Tang Wan's neck, saying, "Okay, okay, you can coax me." Tang Wan heard Lu Lin's words and rubbed Lu Lin's face harder, as if he was being coquettish. Lu Lin was kissed by Tang Wan with her soft little face. She was disgusted, but with a smile on her face she said, "Oh, oh, oh, stop rubbing, like a little cat." Tang Wan heard Lu Lin's voice and stopped in confusion. Just like this, it looks more like a little milk cat. Lu Lin rubbed Tang Wan's face vigorously, and then said, "That's why such a cute little kid is liked by so many people, and so many people want to the little kid." Tang Wan listened to Lu Lin's complaint obediently, with a slight arc at the corner of her mouth. The atmosphere was just right, a little more warm. As for the matter of enrolling in Tang Wan, the Lu family is also actively handling it. But because Tang Wan is a transfer student, it will take some time to review the information. Based on these reasons, Lu Lin is going to take Tang Wan on the show to spend this boring time. It's just that this time, the location chosen for the program is not the remote place in Huainan, but a relatively developed central city on the other side of Huainan. The happiest person to know this news is Sujiajia. After all, in her mind, the reason Tang Wan was able to shine in previous programs was all because she knew so much about the land. But it's different now. The program team is going to the city. Tang Wan, who grew up in a ravine, how could she know so much information? She is just a country bumpkin and knows nothing. This time, it's time for me to shine. Thinking of this, Sujiajia had a happy look on her face. Just wait, Tang Wan won't be happy for long. However, Tang Wan, who was worried about Sujiajia, was sitting in the first-class cabin with Lu Lin, watching the latest anime. Tang Wan is still eating the small cakes made by the Lu family's aunt. They were specially made into Tang Wan's bite-size pieces, which is very suitable for Tang Wan's mouth. Lu Lin sat behind Tang Wan, hugging the little Tang Wan, running his well-joined fingers through Tang Wan's silky hair, and skillfully braided Tang Wan into several beautiful braids. Then he took out a few hairpins bought from Chanel and put them on Tang Wan. Having been playing with it for a long time, it's like decorating a beautiful doll. Lu Lin seemed to have experienced the fun of dressing up a child. He grabbed Tang Wan's hand, put the Miamua bracelet on her, and nodded. She said with some satisfaction, "It's a pity that Tang Tang doesn't have pierced ears, otherwise I would get you some sapphire earrings." Tang Wan allowed Lu Lin to dress him up and raised his hand when asked. He was extremely obedient. Under Lu Lin's meticulous care of the baby, Tang Wan's injuries improved a lot. The scars have faded a lot, and they no longer look so ferocious. But Lu Lin still put on long clothes and trousers for Tang Wan to cover up the traces of sadness. The future he wants for Tang Wan is not what it is now. It is a world that she can really come into contact with, different from the current cramped world. Her life has just begun and there is no need to die prematurely. Lu Ziyi on the side moved his short legs, looking at his uncle dressing up Tang Wan, feeling a little impatient. Pei Yunzhou glanced at Lu Ziyi, then at Lu Ziyi, and smiled extraordinarily softly. If you leave your seat, I can guarantee that your brother-in-law will twist your head off. Just be satisfied that your uncle never played house games when he was a child and let him play for a while. Lu Ziyi looked at Lu Lin's movements with some envy. He still stayed in his seat, but his eyes were full of longing. Tang Wan is so beautiful and well behaved. So much so that she wouldn't resist no matter how much she was dressed in gold and silver. When those beautiful eyes looked at anyone, they were enough to make anyone's heart flutter. So far, Pei Yunzhou has not figured out why a little Tang Wan has such great charm and makes everyone surround her. But just that night, being able to make the most correct decision in danger was enough for Tang Wan to leave a strong mark in his heart. He is a transparent child who has his own understanding of everything. Although she was scared, she did not scream loudly, nor did she have an emotional breakdown. She just quietly added a touch of her own color to the world. For a person like Pei Yunzhou, he has seen many geniuses and many emotionally stable children. After all, even the young Master Lu next to him is a rare genius. But they are different from Tang Wan. Perhaps it was because she had been in the mud too early that she cared more about other people's feelings. Caring about other people's feelings is as simple as drinking water for Tang Wan. She easily found the hidden truth of human nature from those trivial details. She also found Lu Lin, who was hard-spoken and soft-hearted, at the most important time. I also know that among those brats, the one who is most difficult to get along with is not Sujiajia, who appears to be the most difficult to get along with, but the cold and hypocritical Fu Wenzi. Such ability is very precious. Because people who live long enough to use this ability have almost all experienced utter despair before they have this understanding. She was unfortunate because she grew up in the mud, but she was lucky because she found Lu Lin, who was willing to raise her when she was about to die. Pei Yunzhou sometimes analyzes the relationship between Lu Lin and Tang Wan when he is alone. Finally, I can only think of one relationship to describe them. A natural-born idealistic philanthropist, he met his favorite flower. They reached the same frequency at this moment. It is the best state of nutrition in the world. Tang Wan didn't know what Pei Yunzhou was thinking. She just felt that there was a gaze that had been looking at her for a long time. It took so long that she couldn't ignore it, so she turned her head and saw Pei Yunzhou's unblinking gaze. Not only did he not feel any embarrassment, he instead showed a generous smile to Tang Wan. As if admitting what he has done. Tang Wan withdrew his gaze as if nothing had happened and did not make any further reaction. Pei Yunzhou is a person that brother Lu Lin doesn't like. She is a good child and wants to stay away from him. Soon, the group of them arrived at the center of Huainan. The center of the city didn't seem to be particularly accurate. After all, there is a clear lake here and endless gardens. Where the sky and the lake meet, the sky and the earth are divided into two. The vast grassland is a galloping wilderness, with galloping horses on it. The drone suddenly flew into the sky, taking in a panoramic view of the beautiful scenery on the ground. The second season of New Dad has officially started recording.